Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Dr. Franklin Ruehl, theorist physicist of UCLA, sits down with 14-year-old young Jack Graham in Los Angeles. Did aliens have involvement with the extinction of the dinosaurs? Professor Ruehl goes into detail. Also, does aliens and governments have a secret agenda? We'll be getting to that in this amazing interview. Now let's get to it.
Right now, NASA has a rover on Mars. Do you think it might find life or even intelligent life?
I certainly think they may find microscopic life, or at least traces of life that existed before on the surface. But it's my contention, based on the idea that the face of Mars was created by intelligent entities, that as the Martian atmosphere thinned, the entities migrated underground. So we could still have a civilization there beneath the Martian surface. No doubt about it whatsoever.
So you actually think that civilization might exist underneath the surface of Mars?
Absolutely.
Do you think that could happen with Earth as well?
In the future, we don't know, but I think intelligent beings will find a way to survive environmental changes. So if we would, for instance, have a new ice age, we would still survive. Or if for some reason we did have the planet heat up, we would still find ways to survive, and it might involve migrating underground.
Do you think there could be life on barren, desolate planets like Mercury or Venus?
Well, interestingly that you mentioned Mercury, because despite its surface temperature of 700 degrees Fahrenheit, they have found ice caps at the northern polar cap. And if you have ice caps, with that heat you could have melting, you could have subsurface water, and hence an environment for some type of life to exist in.
What about Venus, a place where...
Well, Venus has an atmospheric temperature of about 900 degrees Fahrenheit, yet, again, it could have what I call aerial forms of life. While they may not exist on the surface of Venus, they could be floating around. And I'm not just talking about birds, but it could be the equivalent of what we might call an atmospheric ocean, where you'd have nektonic forms, which would adhere to clouds, tectonic forms, which would have volitional motion, and other types that could just be floating around or adhering to the clouds. So I think there could be atmospheric life in a boiling planet like Venus.
These life forms in hostile environments like Venus or Mercury, could they possibly have intelligence equal to us?
I don't know if it would be equal to us, but I certainly think they're going to have a wide spectrum of bioforms, and over time they could evolve intelligence, and whether it would match ours or not, I think it's unknown, but a possibility. I'm open to every possible type of life, including intelligent beings floating in the atmospheres of planets such as Venus, which have boiling surfaces.
If we find other Earth-like planets, would their evolution pattern be similar to us?
Actually, I think it's up in the air that you could have two identical planets, two identical Earths, for example, and different types of life. Even if they were identical in terms of the morphology, they might have different mental capacities, different abilities. Some might have psychokinetic abilities, others telepathic abilities. So I think that just even with two identical planets, you would have different types of life.
Are there some old science fiction shows that you think might possibly become a reality pretty soon?
Well, I'll tell you, my favorite sci-fi film was from 1950, Rocket Ship XM, where an expedition was headed to the moon. That was what the M stood for in the title, but got mysteriously diverted to Mars. And there they found evidence of an advanced civilization that had undergone nuclear warfare and destroyed itself. But the remnants of the civilization had reverted to cavemen, and they actually ultimately killed off all of the Earthlings. Two of them escaped, but their plane, three of them escaped actually, but their spaceship crashed on Earth. It was an excellent film.
What about an icy planet such as Pluto? Do you think there could be life there?
We have evidence of life forms under Antarctic ice. So I think that no matter how cold a planet is, you could have some type of life that's evolved to exist within it. And that would certainly include a planet like Pluto, which is bitter cold.
Do you think it's possible that the government would possibly withhold alien information from us?
Absolutely. First, they may be fearful that there would be panic if they revealed the fact that ETs and UFOs had landed here. There's also the idea that they want to discourage other countries from trying to find UFOs and reverse engineer them. So they would want to keep that secret also. And there are other reasons. Governments just tend to keep intriguing information a secret. So certainly Area 51 may have alien spacecraft hidden within.
Do you believe in aliens that could possibly look like Earthlings that could be disguised within our own government?
Well, this is an idea that's been advanced that some of our leaders are actually alien beings, perhaps even lizard people who have developed the technology to conceal themselves as human. I'm open to all possibilities, but that one I'm a bit skeptical of.
Do you have any conspiracies that you personally believe in?
I'm open to many different conspiracies, and certainly, for example, with 9/11, there's a possibility that our own government was behind it. I know that sounds extreme, but it's a possibility which then gave the Bush administration an excuse to invade Iraq. We had no reason whatsoever to invade Iraq. Saddam Hussein, while he did not like America, was not playing host to terrorists. He didn't want them disrupting his own government. So we had absolutely no reason to invade Iraq.
Now, earlier you mentioned that the dinosaurs might have possibly been exterminated by a type of nuclear winter. Do you think it's possible that a nuclear winter might happen to us, possibly caused by an extraterrestrial?
We're certainly vulnerable to that, and there are two types of possibilities. First of all, you could have aliens from a colder planet, such as Mars, or one planet beyond our solar system that would be equally cold. They might want to Martianize our planet. That is, cool it off so that that would be comfortable for them. And this could be done by, for example, using different chemicals in the ocean that would reflect sunlight back into space, or set off a nuclear explosion at a gypsum deposit where we'd have sulfuric acid particles going into the air, cooling off our planet, and that would cause our death, but it might make the environment suitable for them. On the other hand, they might be from a warm planet like Venus, or a planet beyond our solar system, and want to nucleate our planet, in which case they might try to trigger a greenhouse effect, such as melting the methane so that it would enter the atmosphere, and which is 20 times more powerful than CO2 as a greenhouse gas, and heat up our planet to accommodate them. So we're certainly vulnerable, and I believe aliens who could be millions of years older than we are may have developed that technology. And of course, there's always the possibility that we could do it inadvertently to ourselves.
Can you tell us a bit about your education? What are credentials to study ufology?
Well, I hold a Ph.D. in theoretical nuclear physics. As a youngster, I was always intrigued by ETs and UFOs from sci-fi shows such as the Space Patrol and Rocky Jones' Space Ranger, and movies such as Rocket Ship XM and Destination Moon. So I'm a child of that era, but I felt there was scientific evidence that was not being presented. So that was one of my goals, to get an education in science and present that technical evidence.
A lot of skeptics state that the distance between humans and aliens are just too far to reach contact. What's your rebuttal to this?
That is an interesting question. I should point out that Einstein was very upset with quantum physics, with its uncertainty, such as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. He said God does not play dice with the universe, and of course, he's the one who established the idea that the speed of light cannot be exceeded. Well, I point out that we have many contradictions in physics today, not just based on quantum physics, but the entire existence of our island universe. When the Big Bang occurred 13.7 billion years ago, there should have been an equal amount of matter and antimatter, which would have disintegrated each other, and we would not have any matter today, just energy out there. So the question is, how did this occur? Well, there are two possibilities that scientists are considering. First, that there was a slight imbalance, that there are a few more for every billion particles. There is one extra particle of matter than antimatter, when they should have been equal. Another possibility is that even though particles and antiparticles should be the exact mirror image of each other, they are not, that the half-life of antiparticles may be slightly shorter, and that's why we had an abundance of matter that created our universe. So the existence of our universe argues for the possibility of what we consider basic physics principles being violated. So the idea that the speed of light is insurmountable, I think, is proved not true by this, that aliens with advanced technology may well have found a way to exceed the speed of light and travel at what we call superluminal velocities.
Now, I know it's extremely complicated to get into, but what are the type of technology do you think that aliens might use to perhaps visit us?
There are many possibilities as far as what they could use. First, we talk about anti-gravity fields. We have toyed with that in some labs. We haven't been able to develop it yet. But again, scientists that are 1,000, 10,000, or a million years older than we are certainly may have developed that technology. Another is using magnetic drives. And then there could be other propulsion systems we can't even conceive of, because we talk about having nuclear fission or nuclear fusion powering ships. But there may be concepts we don't know about yet. But certainly the idea that they may travel vast distances at superluminal velocities, I think is within the realm of feasibility based on the time that they've had, billions of years to develop the technology, plus the fact that we do have these violations of physics principles, such as what we call CP or charged particle violations. So anything is within the realm of feasibility that we can conceive of.
Now, what are some of the more modern inventions of science do you think that could possibly give us a view to the future about how our humanity might evolve and eventually branch out into the universe?
Well, first of all, with our computer technology, which is still accelerating at a fantastic rate, I think that that's going to allow us to actually chart the future in many ways and predict what can happen, and also come up and give us new ideas for new concepts in science. So certainly anything that we can conceive of, I think, is within the realm of feasibility. Today's science fiction often becomes tomorrow's science fact.
Have you ever seen a UFO before?
On just one case, this was, a friend of mine and I were just leaving, having taped a segment of Weird TV. I looked up and saw in the sky what appeared to be a diamond-shaped UFO. It had 4 brilliant lights. I said, Todd, look at that. By the time he looked up, it already had vanished. Now, the diamond shape is a lesser-known type of UFO. We have, of course, the saucer shape and cigar shape, which are the predominant shapes that are observed. But there are a few cases of diamond-shaped UFOs. Now, this might have been a plane. I've been to the LAX watching planes take off to see if I could find a comparable sighting. Some are similar, but not exact. So all I'm saying, it's a possibility because it moved so fast and had the lights, 4 lights, and had the shape that's been described by other UFO witnesses. But I'm not willing to stake my reputation that absolutely there's a UFO. It's a possibility. And of course, I've often wondered if I saw a UFO actually land, would I go up and greet the ETs, or when it came to reality, I might be the first to run away from it. So I don't know. I hope I have that chance to find out.
Now, with all the UFO reporting, it's clearly, if some of them are true, the government would know about it. Do you think the government actively involves with ETs?
Well, we have many reports of UFOs having been captured by our government, and then, such as at Area 51, we're reverse engineering the technology. That may have been the basis for our stealth aircraft. I'm certainly open to that. I did cover Area 51 for a current affair for their 50th anniversary. I interviewed both skeptics and believers. I'm certainly open to the idea that downed UFOs have been captured and that we've engaged in reverse engineering.
What are some of the common arguments that skeptics use, and how do you rebut them?
Well, the skeptics, first of all, present the argument that the distances, the interstellar distances, for example, are so vast that it would take too long for spacecraft to travel here from another planet. But I again point out that they may have conquered the speed of light, exceeded it with superluminal velocities, and could be exploring our planet as well as others. After all, we have a space program. Unfortunately, it's been derailed due to economic considerations. If we had continued with our space program, with our lunar projects, as you may know, the Apollos 18, 19, and 20 were canceled. What happened was the Soviet Union actually jump-started our space program with their program and getting Yuri Gagarin, the first man into space. And we then, under Wernher von Braun, exceeded them, put them to shame actually, and because they began to fall out of the race, and one problem was that their space director, their equivalent of Wernher von Braun, fell into political disfavor and mysteriously died. And that caused the collapse of their space program. They no longer offered a challenge, so we myopically canceled the Apollos 18, 19, and 20, and our space program reverted to our space program, space station, and orbiting the Earth. Originally, in sci-fi, they talked about, first of all, having an orbiting space station, and then the next step would be going to the moon and then to Mars. We showed you could jumpstart that and go directly to the moon, and our next project should have been sending a manned expedition to Mars. We should have a colony on Mars as well as an active colony on the moon. Instead, we're still down here on Earth. So other aliens, other civilizations may well have developed a space program and or could be here today.
Now, going into more detail, what are some of the statistical, evidences for the existence of aliens?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. First of all, we have at least 100 billion galaxies in our island universe, and that may be a minimal figure. Each galaxy may have 400 billion stars, such as our Milky Way. Each star, I argue, is orbited by perhaps 9 or 10 planets, as well as many moons. And many of these moons may harbor life, as well as the planets. But we've discovered some galaxies that are much larger. For example, the largest known galaxy discovered to date is known as IC 1101. That is actually 50 times the size of our Milky Way galaxy and has 2,000 times the mass. And the estimation is that there are 100 trillion stars in that galaxy,
Wow.
as opposed to just 400 billion on our own. Mind-boggling figures. And there may be more gigantic galaxies out there. So the number of stars, hence the number of planets and sites for alien life, is enormous. And what I'm arguing is that on at least some of these planets, we should find some type of life that has evolved to a state where they have intelligence and a technological ability that allows them to engage in spacefaring. I point out there's this recent study of the University of Chicago of red dwarf stars. They estimated that there are at least 60 billion Earth-like planets about the red dwarf stars alone. Now, I argue that we don't have to just look at Earth-like stars for Earth-like planets for life. Life could exist in any number of millions. For example, virtually every part of our planet, whether hot and broiling or cold and freezing, harbors some type of life. I argue that you don't necessarily need water and oxygen for life. Of course, it's going to be different from terrestrial life, but every planet, I argue, harbors an entire spectrum of bioforms ranging from lower to higher embodiments.
Exactly. Like you said, do you believe there's any life possibly in our solar system?
Definitely. I believe that there's possibly life on every single planet, as well as a number of planetary moons, especially those that have atmospheres, such as Titan about Saturn, and of course, the Galilean quartet about Jupiter, that we should expect to find life on even small moons, as long as there's some type of atmosphere, and of course, if there's a possibility of ice, then beneath that ice, there could be liquid water and some type of embodiments and some type of entities. So I'm arguing that we should expect to find life on every planet in the solar system.
Recently, scientists have been theorizing there might be liquid water under Io, one of the Jupiter's moons. Do you think there could be intelligent life there, possibly?
I think that wherever life evolves, there could be intelligence. Obviously, we're not going to find English-speaking humanoids on planet after planet or on some of the planetary moons, but some type of life that's evolved intelligence is certainly within the realm of feasibility. And we can't expect entities necessarily to resemble humans with 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes. Anything that you can conceive of is possible. So that's why I always say, whatever the science writers come up with is certainly possible, because we're talking about a vast universe out there. Planet after planet, as well as planetary moons, can have some type of life, and not just one type of life. Just as on Earth, we have millions of species, if you include the bacteria. Certainly possible too on other worlds.
Can you tell us a bit about that two-headed dinosaur?
Well, I'll tell you. Today on Earth we have 2-headed frogs, 2-headed turtles, and even a case of a 2-headed fish. Now, the dinos were neither fish nor turtles. They were actually not reptiles nor amphibians, but rather a combination of the two. But what's important is that they were egg layers. They were oviparous entities. And I'm arguing that it's certainly possible that, protected by an eggshell, 2-headed dinosaurs might have actually been born and existed during the dinosaur era. Thus far, we've not found any, but I'm going to make a prediction right now that somewhere on Earth we'll find one dino fossil with 2 heads. And on worlds beyond our own solar system where the dinos did not die out, perhaps these are the dominant entities on their planets. Yes, 2-headed dinosaurs.
Do you think there's a possibility for dinosaurs to become intelligent like us?
I'm glad you asked that, because there's one theory that the Stenonychosaurus, which was a raptor that was about 3 feet tall but had the largest brain for its body size of any dinosaur, would have evolved in what's called the Dinosauroid. That's an upright standing humanoid lizard-like entity that would have had a fairly good-sized brain, been bipedal, perhaps had reptilian skin, and would have evolved as the dominant species on our planet if the dinos had not died out here? Well, we have some UFO abductees who claim that they've actually been in contact with what we call reptoids or reptilian humanoid entities. That's certainly possible. They could have evolved here if the dinos had not died out, may well have evolved on planets beyond our solar system.
Now, can you go into a bit about your theory of how aliens might have deliberately wiped out the dinosaurs?
Well, there are two possibilities here. One, which I'm skeptical about, but I'm saying is a possibility, is that they might have actually been alien big game hunters who are destroying the dinosaurs, came to Earth just to hunt down dinosaurs. Just as we go, for example, on safari to Africa and hunt down African animals there. It's certainly possible that aliens did that. Another idea is that ETs wanted to jumpstart the human race on our planet. Perhaps they're humanoid entities and they wanted to see humans on this planet. And they might have been able to use some sort of power drive to direct an asteroid into our planet, such as the Yucatan Peninsula. The Yucatan Peninsula is very important because it contained a gypsum deposit. From the dino's standpoint, that was the very worst part of the Earth for an asteroid to strike, because it caused into the atmosphere millions of particles of sulfuric acid, droplets of sulfuric acid that acted as tiny mirrors reflecting impinging sunlight back into space, triggering what we call the nuclear winter that cooled off the planet and led to the demise of all dinosaurs.
I noticed you have a couple feathers on this giant T-Rex over here. Why exactly?
Well, one of the current theories is that the dinosaurs evolved into the birds. The birds we see today, including chickens, may be the descendants of the dinosaurs. That these small entities, just as other small creatures, were able to survive that nuclear winter when the asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula. Well, we have evidence that the dinosaurs, especially the bipedal raptors, had feathers for possibly three reasons. One, for warmth, another for attracting mates, and a third to actually increase their speed. So when they're pursuing prey or trying to escape so they're not prey themselves, this would have allowed them to move faster, and ultimately those feathers would have evolved into wings. And that's the idea that dinos may be the ancestors of today's birds.
Now, do you think there's some civilizations where robots have become self-aware and possibly taken over?
I think it's absolutely possible. Many cybernetic experts on Earth are speculating that in the future, and we're talking perhaps 50 or 100 years, as we develop robots to a more efficient design, that they're going to have intelligence, and it's possible, just possible, that once they acquire intelligence, they could become the dominant species on our planet. It's not going to happen immediately, but some serious experts in the computer field have thought that robots could indeed achieve intelligence, and the next step might be conquest. So on other planets that are older than ours, that's certainly a possibility. And that would allow, for instance, robotic entities to travel vast distances over huge spans of time without aging.
Is that a potato?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I'm glad you asked. This is my famous straw in a potato demonstration. I claim that I can drive this lily-livered straw right through this rock-hard potato by pinching the straw and saying the magic word Gai. Do you see that? Let's try that one more time. Gai. Just one more time. Gai. Now the principle at work here, Jack, is as follows. We're all surrounded by air which acts downward with a pressure of 14.7 pounds per square inch. When I pinch the straw, I'm trapping air in it, converting it to something akin to a nail. Gai. Now, if I were to do this on the surface of Mars, where the atmosphere is only 1/100th that on Earth, it would not work quite as well. Gai. Contrary-wise, if I were to do it on the surface of Venus, where the atmosphere is 90 times that on Earth, it would even work better. Gai. And this one more. Gai. One more. Gai. One more. Gai. And that went right through, and that's one more. Gai. You see that? One potato, 10 straws. Science in action.
Do you have any interesting trivia-type questions for the viewers out there?
I just happen to have one right here. Let me extricate it here from its paper prison. The question: in the 1951 sci-fi classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still, how long did the Earth actually stand still for? Multiple choice: was that 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 6 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours? And what's your answer, Jack?
My answer would probably be 60 minutes.
60 minutes is wrong. It was only 30 minutes. The Earth stood still, actually, in the sense that all electrical equipment was off, cars couldn't drive, except that planes, so there would be no accidents, were still allowed to function. Now, there was a flub in this, because we had Michael Rennie, who was Klaatu, and Patricia Neal, the Earthling. They were trapped in an elevator. The lights dimmed, but we could still see them. The light was still on slightly. It shouldn't have been on at all. By the way, the producers wanted to use Spencer Tracy as Klaatu, but Justin Blatho, who was the executive producer, said if we have Spencer Tracy emerge from the spacecraft, that's going to destroy the image of an alien. He opted for Michael Rennie, an English actor who wasn't known in America, who had this great voice and wonderful stature, and he was a perfect choice for the role.
Why do you think there's more reports of UFO sightings lately?
Well, I think we have a populace now that's walking around, for the most part, with cell phones and iPhones and other camcorders that they can immediately take a photo of some object they see. So we're inundated with reports. Some of them, of course, are just natural phenomena, a few are pieces of fakery, but on the other hand, some of them may actually be legitimate UFOs or extraterrestrial vehicles.
We want to thank Dr. Franklin Ruehl for speaking with young Jack Graham and sharing his incredible opinions right here at Third Phase of Moon. And if you captured anything amazing, submit it to us via Skype or Facebook, Third Phase of Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.